The research ship Odyssey moved slowly through the dark waters of the Pacific Ocean. Captain Hae-jun Kim stood on the bridge, his eyes fixed on the large screen showing the ocean depth. The numbers kept increasing as the ship sailed over the Mariana Trench, the deepest place on Earth. "Captain, you should come see this." Dr. Jae-yun Park's voice came through the ship's communication system. Her tone made Hae-jun's heart beat faster. In 15 years of deep-sea research, he had never heard such excitement in his chief marine biologist's voice. Hae-jun walked quickly to the main laboratory. The room was filled with screens and strange equipment. Jae-yun sat in front of the largest monitor, her fingers moving quickly over the keyboard. Next to her, Taiwan Lee, their best submersible pilot, was shaking his head in disbelief. "Look at these readings," Jae-yun pointed to the screen. "We're picking up electrical signals from 36,000 feet below. That's deeper than any known sea creature can live." Hae-jun leaned closer to the screen. The signals appeared as bright dots moving in strange patterns. "Could it be equipment failure?" he asked. "We checked 3 times," Taiwan said. "All our instruments are working perfectly. Whatever is making these signals, it's alive." Just then, the ship's alarm started to sound. Hae-jun rushed back to the bridge. The ocean around them had changed. Huge waves were forming where the water had been calm just minutes ago. The ship's instruments showed strong underwater currents moving in ways that didn't make sense. "Captain," one of the crew members pointed to the radar screen. "Look at this. There are whales coming toward us. Hundreds of them." Hae-jun watched in amazement as dots appeared on the radar, showing whales of different species swimming together. This had never happened before. Whales didn't travel in mixed groups, and they certainly didn't swim this deep. Back in the laboratory, Jae-yun was recording everything. Her hands shook as she took notes. The electrical signals from the deep were getting stronger. They formed patterns that looked almost like writing. "We need to send down a probe," she said when Hae-jun returned. "These patterns, they're not random. It's like something down there is trying to communicate." Hae-jun looked at his watch. It was 3:00 a.m. He had been awake for 20 hours, but sleep was the last thing on his mind. "Prepare the deep-sea probe," he ordered. "Taiwan, can you operate it at this depth?" Taiwan nodded. "The new probe can handle the pressure. But Captain, if something goes wrong at that depth, we can't get it back." "We have to try," Jae-yun said. She pointed to another screen showing ocean temperatures. "Look at this. The deep water is getting warmer. Whatever is down there is changing the environment around it. We need to know what it is." As the crew prepared the probe, Hae-jun sent a message to the research center back on land. He wrote about the electrical signals, the strange currents, and the whales. As he typed, he realized how unbelievable it all sounded. If someone had told him this story yesterday, he would have laughed. The probe was ready at dawn. The sky was turning pink as Taiwan began to lower it into the dark water. Jae-yun watched the depth meter. 1,000 feet, 5,000 feet, 15,000 feet. At 20,000 feet, the probe's lights showed something moving in the darkness. The crew gathered around the screens, holding their breath. Nobody spoke as the probe went deeper and deeper. Then, at 35,000 feet, the probe's camera captured something that made everyone gasp. Through the murky water, they saw a massive shape moving. It was giving off a soft blue light. The shape was bigger than their research ship, and it was definitely alive. "Send this footage to headquarters now," Hae-jun ordered. But before anyone could move, all the ship's screens went dark. When they came back on seconds later, they showed the same strange patterns they had seen in the electrical signals. Whatever was down there, it wasn't just alive. It was trying to tell them something. 3 days had passed since the Odyssey's first discovery. The ship hadn't moved from its position above the Mariana Trench. Dr. Jae-yun Park hadn't slept much during this time. She spent hours studying the strange patterns that kept appearing on their screens. "The patterns are becoming clearer," she told Captain Hee-jun Kim during their morning meeting. They repeat every 6 hours. It's not random noise. It's a message. Hee-jun nodded slowly. Headquarters gave us permission to send down the new deep-sea submersible, he said. Are you sure you want to go? I have to, Jae-yun replied. Someone needs to see this up close, and I'm the most qualified marine biologist here. Taiwan Lee, who would pilot the submersible, was already checking the equipment. The new vessel, called the Deep Diver, was built to withstand enormous pressure. It could carry 3 people to depths that no human had ever reached before. The oxygen systems are working perfectly, Taiwan reported. We have enough air for 10 hours underwater. At noon, Jae-yun and Taiwan entered the Deep Diver. A third crew member, the experienced diver Yum-ho Kang, joined them. The small vessel was slowly lowered into the dark water. Deep Diver, do you copy? Hee-jun's voice came through their radio. We copy, Odyssey, Taiwan responded. Beginning descent now. The darkness grew deeper as they went down. Their powerful lights showed nothing but empty water for the first few hours. At 15,000 feet, they saw the first sign of something unusual, small creatures that glowed with blue and green light. These shouldn't be here, Jae-yun said, recording everything with their cameras. These fish species never swim this deep. At 30,000 feet, their lights caught something massive moving in the distance. The water around them began to vibrate. Yum-ho checked their instruments. The water pressure is changing, he reported. But it's not natural. Something is controlling the currents. Suddenly, their lights reflected off something enormous. At first, it looked like a wall of shimmering blue light. Then the wall moved, and they realized they were looking at a living creature. It was bigger than anything they had ever seen. The creature's skin changed colors, creating patterns similar to the ones they had seen on their screens. Parts of its body glowed with different colored lights. It had large, intelligent eyes that studied their small vessel. It's beautiful, Jae-yun whispered. She pressed her face against the window, trying to see more. It looks like a giant squid, but the anatomy is all wrong. Those tentacles, they're creating the pressure waves somehow. The creature moved closer. Now they could see it better. It had 12 tentacles, not 8 like normal squids. Each tentacle ended in something that looked like hands. The creature's skin kept changing colors, creating more complex patterns. Look at this, Taiwan pointed to their instruments. The pressure waves it's making. They match the patterns we saw on our screens. It's not just moving the water. It's using the pressure changes to communicate. Jae-yun quickly adjusted their equipment to record the pressure changes. As she did this, more creatures appeared from the darkness. They were different shapes and sizes, but all of them glowed and changed colors. Odyssey, are you getting this? Taiwan called through the radio. We're receiving your video feed, Hee-jun replied. His voice sounded tense. We're also getting reports from other research ships. Similar creatures have appeared in deep trenches all around the world. The largest creature moved even closer to their submersible. It reached out one tentacle and gently touched their vessel. The moment it did, all their instruments showed the same pattern, a complex sequence that repeated 3 times. It's not just trying to communicate, Jae-yun said excitedly. It's teaching us its language. As they watched in amazement, the creatures began to move in a coordinated way. They were forming a path in the darkness, leading deeper into the trench. They want us to follow them, Yum-ho said. Jae-yun looked at her colleagues. They all knew this could be dangerous, but they also knew this was the greatest discovery in human history. Odyssey, Taiwan called. We're going to follow them. These beings, they're not just animals. They're intelligent, and they have something to show us. The deep diver followed the glowing creatures through the dark water. Dr. Jae-yun Park kept checking their depth gauge. They were now at 35,500 feet, deeper than any human had ever gone before. Look ahead, Taiwan Lee said quietly. His hands were steady on the controls, but his voice showed his amazement. In front of them, built into the wall of the trench, was something that couldn't possibly be natural. It was a massive structure with smooth walls that gleamed in their lights. The entrance was a perfect circle, large enough for the giant creatures to swim through. "Odyssey, are you seeing this?" Young Ho Kang called through the radio. "We're getting your video feed." Captain Hei-jun Kim's voice crackled back. "Our new crew member, Dr. Do-Yun Choi, wants to speak with you." Do-Yun was a marine archaeologist who had arrived by helicopter that morning. Her voice came through their speakers. "The markings on those walls. They match cave paintings found in different parts of the world. Some of these paintings are over 50,000 years old." Jai-yun looked more closely at the walls. There were indeed markings carved into them. They showed pictures of the ocean, the creatures they had met, and what looked like ancient maps. The largest creature gestured with its tentacles, inviting them to follow it inside. The deep diver's lights showed a long tunnel leading deeper into the rock. The walls were lined with strange containers that glowed with a soft blue light. "These containers," Jai-yun said, taking pictures with their cameras. "They're holding something. They look like sample containers, like the ones we use in our labs." As they moved deeper into the structure, they entered a large round room. The walls were covered with more markings, but these were different. They showed a story. Do-Yun's voice came through again, filled with excitement. "These images, they're telling us about Earth's history," she said. "Look at the sequence. It shows these creatures living on the surface, then something terrible happening, and then them moving to the deep ocean." The giant creature touched one of the walls. Suddenly, the whole room lit up. The markings began to glow with different colors. New images appeared, showing things that made the humans gasp. "Are those cities?" Young Ho asked. They were indeed cities, but not human cities. The images showed underwater buildings and structures that looked far more advanced than anything humans had built. But there was something else too. Images that seemed to be showing a warning. "The last set of images," Do-Yun said through the radio. "They show something sleeping in the deepest parts of the ocean. Something even bigger than our new friends." The creature leading them moved to another wall. It pressed its tentacles against different markings in a specific order. A hidden door opened, revealing a smaller room filled with more of the glowing containers. "These containers," Jai-yun said, studying them through their windows. "They're preserving different species. Some of these creatures, they went extinct millions of years ago, or at least we thought they did." Suddenly, their vessel's warning system started beeping. "We're picking up seismic activity," Ta-1 reported. "Something's moving deep below us." The giant creature's skin flashed with urgent patterns. It began guiding them back toward the entrance. The whole structure was starting to vibrate. "Whatever they were warning us about," Jai-yun said, "I think it's waking up." As they rushed back through the tunnel, Young Ho noticed something. The containers along the walls. They're starting to activate. All of them are glowing brighter. Back on the Odyssey, Captain Hei-jun received reports from research stations around the world. Similar structures had been found in other deep ocean trenches, and all of them were showing the same signs of activity. The ancient archive had delivered its message. Something that had been sleeping for millions of years was about to wake up, and these creatures had been guarding its prison all this time. The Odyssey's instruments started ringing their alarms at exactly midnight. Young oceanographer Sun Mi Kang rushed to the main laboratory, her coffee cup still in hand. The seismic readings were off the charts. "Captain, you need to see this," she called through the ship's communication system. Captain Hei-jun Kim arrived minutes later, followed by Dr. Jae-yun Park. "The ocean floor is moving," Sun Mi explained, pointing to her screens. "Not just here, but in every deep trench around the world. Something big is happening." The ship began to shake. Outside, the calm ocean had turned angry. Huge waves crashed against the Odyssey's sides. The night sky lit up with strange colors reflected from below the water. Look at these readings, Sun Mai said. These creatures aren't new species. According to the data from the ancient archive, they've been here longer than humans. They're Earth's first intelligent species. Before anyone could respond, a massive shape broke through the surface of the water near their ship. It was bigger than any creature they had ever seen. Its skin glowed with patterns of blue and green light, and its eyes were as large as cars. That's what was sleeping in the deep, Jai-yun whispered. The archive was warning us about this. More creatures emerged from the water around them. They were different from their guides in the deep. These beings were ancient and powerful. Some looked like giant squids, others like enormous whales, and some had shapes that didn't match any known animal. The ship's radio crackled to life. "This is Admiral Sang-ho Park," a stern voice announced. "We're receiving reports of similar creatures appearing worldwide. Military forces are moving to contain the situation." Hejun grabbed the radio. "Admiral, wait. These creatures are intelligent. We need to try to communicate with them first." But it was too late. Military ships were already appearing on their radar. Helicopters flew overhead, their spotlights pointing at the massive creatures in the water. The largest creature raised its head high above the waves. Its skin flashed with bright patterns that matched the ones they had seen in the ancient archive. The water around it began to move in strange ways, creating whirlpools and waves that didn't follow natural patterns. "The creatures aren't attacking," Sun Mai said, studying her instruments. "They're trying to stabilize the ocean floor. The military activity is making them nervous. If they lose control..." She didn't need to finish her sentence. Everyone knew what could happen if these ancient beings lost control of the forces they were holding back. The entire planet's tectonic plate system could be affected. "We need to stop this now," Hejun said. He picked up the radio again. "Admiral Park, you need to order your forces to stand down. Dr. Kang has proof that these creatures are Earth's original guardians. They're not our enemies. They're trying to prevent a disaster." The massive creature turned its huge eyes toward their ship. Its skin changed colors again, creating patterns that Jai-yun recognized from their visit to the archive. "It's showing us the same warning," she said. "Whatever they were guarding against in the deep, it's not just waking up. It's already awake, and these beams are our only hope of controlling it." The sound of military helicopters grew louder. The ancient creatures began to move in formation, creating a circle around the Odyssey. They weren't threatening the ship, they were protecting it. "Admiral," Hejun said into the radio, his voice firm. "We have one chance to handle this right. These beings watched over Earth long before humans existed. Now they need our help, and we need theirs." The fate of the world hung in the balance as they waited for the Admiral's response. Admiral Sang-ho Park's voice came through the radio after what felt like hours. "Captain Hejun, you have 1 hour to prove these creatures are intelligent and peaceful. After that, we must take action to protect our coastal cities." Dr. Jai-yun Park turned to her colleague, Min Ji-yoon, who had just arrived by helicopter. Min-ji was one of the world's best experts in animal communication. She had spent years studying how whales and dolphins talk to each other. "We need to combine everything we know," Jai-yun said. "The pressure waves they make, the light patterns on their skin, and the information from the ancient archive. It's all part of their language." Min-ji nodded and opened her laptop. She had already studied the video recordings from the deep diver's visit to the underwater structure. "These patterns keep repeating," she said, pointing to her screen. "They're not random. They're like letters in an alphabet." The largest creature was still watching their ship. Its skin glowed with changing colors that reflected off the dark water. Small waves moved in circles around the Odyssey, forming patterns that matched the creature's lights. "The archives showed they lived on land once," Sun Mai Kang said. "They must have changed their way of talking when they moved to the deep ocean. Light and pressure waves travel better in water than sound." Min-ji typed quickly on her computer, matching the light patterns with the pressure waves. "Look at this," she said suddenly. "When we put them together, They make perfect sense. It's like reading music. The lights are the notes, and the waves are the rhythm. Jai-yun rushed to the ship's control panel. She adjusted their underwater lights to copy the patterns they had seen. The massive creature's eyes widened as it watched their attempt to communicate. "Tell them we want to help," Hei-jun said. "Tell them we understand why they've been hiding, but now we need to work together." Min-ji and Jai-yun worked together, using the ship's lights and special equipment that could make pressure waves in the water. They copied the patterns they had learned, changing them slightly to make new messages. The creature's response was immediate. Its skin lit up with bright colors, and the water around the ship moved in new patterns. The other creatures gathered closer, their bodies also showing lights and making waves. "They're talking back," Min-ji said excitedly. They're saying they've been watching us, learning about us. They knew humans would find them eventually, but they had to wait until we were ready." "Ready for what?" Hei-jun asked. Before Min-ji could answer, the largest creature moved closer to the ship. It lifted one of its giant tentacles out of the water and pointed toward the deep ocean. Its skin showed a series of patterns that Min-ji and Jai-yun quickly translated. "They're not just Earth's first intelligent species," Jai-yun said, her voice full of wonder. "They're its protectors. They've been guarding something in the deep ocean, something that could destroy the world if it's not handled correctly." "The military activity is making things worse," Sun Mai added, checking her instruments. "The vibrations from the ships and helicopters are disturbing whatever they've been guarding." Hei-jun picked up the radio again. "Admiral Park, we've done it. We can communicate with them. They're not our enemies. They're Earth's original guardians. And right now, they're asking for our help." The creature's skin flashed one more message. Min-ji's hands shook as she translated it. "They're saying we don't have much time," she said. "The thing they've been guarding for millions of years is almost awake. If we don't work together now, everything on Earth, above and below the water, will be in danger." Admiral Sang-ho Park's voice came through the radio after what felt like hours. "Captain Hei-jun, you have 1 hour to prove these creatures are intelligent and peaceful. After that, we must take action to protect our coastal cities." Dr. Jai-yun Park turned to her colleague, Min Ji-yoon, who had just arrived by helicopter. Min-ji was one of the world's best experts in animal communication. She had spent years studying how whales and dolphins talk to each other. "We need to combine everything we know," Jai-yun said. "The pressure waves they make, the light patterns on their skin, and the information from the ancient archive. It's all part of their language." Min-ji nodded and opened her laptop. She had already studied the video recordings from the deep diver's visit to the underwater structure. "These patterns keep repeating," she said, pointing to her screen. "They're not random. They're like letters in an alphabet." The largest creature was still watching their ship. Its skin glowed with changing colors that reflected off the dark water. Small waves moved in circles around the Odyssey, forming patterns that matched the creature's lights. "The archives showed they lived on land once," Sun Mei Kang said. "They must have changed their way of talking when they moved to the deep ocean. Light and pressure waves travel better in water than sound." Min-ji typed quickly on her computer, matching the light patterns with the pressure waves. "Look at this," she said suddenly. "When we put them together, they make perfect sense. It's like reading music. The lights are the notes, and the waves are the rhythm." Jai-yun rushed to the ship's control panel. She adjusted their underwater lights to copy the patterns they had seen. The massive creature's eyes widened as it watched their attempt to communicate. "Tell them we want to help," Hei-jun said. "Tell them we understand why they've been hiding, but now we need to work together." Min-ji and Jai-yun worked together, using the ship's lights and special equipment that could make pressure waves in the water. They copied the patterns they had learned, changing them slightly to make new messages. The creature's response was immediate. Its skin lit up with bright colors, and the water around the ship moved in new patterns. The other creatures gathered closer, their bodies also showing lights and making waves. "They're talking back," Minji said excitedly. They're saying they've been watching us, learning about us. They knew humans would find them eventually, but they had to wait until we were ready." "Ready for what?" He-jun asked. Before Minji could answer, the largest creature moved closer to the ship. It lifted one of its giant tentacles out of the water and pointed toward the deep ocean. Its skin showed a series of patterns that Minji and Jia-yun quickly translated. "They're not just Earth's first intelligent species," Jia-yun said, her voice full of wonder. "They're its protectors. They've been guarding something in the deep ocean, something that could destroy the world if it's not handled correctly." "The military activity is making things worse," Sunlight added, checking her instruments. "The vibrations from the ships and helicopters are disturbing whatever they've been guarding." He-jun picked up the radio again. "Admiral Park, we've done it. We can communicate with them. They're not our enemies. They're Earth's original guardians. And right now, they're asking for our help." The creature's skin flashed one more message. Minji's hands shook as she translated it. "They're saying we don't have much time," she said. "The thing they've been guarding for millions of years is almost awake. If we don't work together now, everything on Earth, above and below the water, will be in danger." Dr. Jia-yun Park studied the ancient creature's light patterns carefully. Their glow was getting weaker as they used more and more of their energy to create the special waves. Captain He-jun Kim could see they were growing tired. "They can't keep this up much longer," Jia-yun said to Admiral Sang-ho Park. "They need help." Min Ji-yoon was working quickly at her computer, translating the creature's messages. "They're saying there might be another way," she reported. "They used to have special places on land, temples built over energy points in the earth. These temples helped them control the sleeping being." Sun Li Kang checked her maps of the ocean floor. "Look at this," she said, pointing to her screen. "All the deep-sea mining sites are located over these energy points. That's why the mining woke up the sleeping being." The largest creature moved closer to the Odyssey. Its skin glowed with new patterns that Minji quickly translated. "It's suggesting something interesting," she said. "The creatures can teach us how to build new equipment, machines that would work with Earth's natural energy instead of disturbing it." Admiral Park looked thoughtful. "So instead of mining that damages the ocean floor, we could build something that helps keep the sleeping being calm." The creature's skin flashed in agreement. More patterns appeared, showing detailed plans for new types of machines. These devices would gather resources from the deep sea, while also sending out calming waves into the earth. "This is amazing," Sunmai said, studying the plans. "These machines would be more efficient than our current mining equipment. They would give us what we need without causing any damage." He-jun turned to the admiral. "This could be the answer we need. The creatures are offering to share their ancient knowledge with us. They're willing to work with humans to protect the Earth." Just then, another tremor shook the ship. The sleeping being was still trying to wake up. The ancient creatures formed a tighter circle, their lights pulsing together as they fought to keep it calm. "We need to decide now," Jia-yun said urgently. "The creatures can't hold it back much longer." Admiral Park stood straight and made his decision. He used his radio to contact all military and mining ships around the world. "This is Admiral Park," he said firmly. "I am ordering an immediate stop to all deep-sea mining operations. We are going to work with these beings to build something better." The creature's skin lit up with bright, happy colors. It reached out one gentle tentacle and touched the ship's side. Through Minji's translations, it shared its gratitude and hope for the future. Over the next few hours, government leaders from around the world joined in a special meeting. They watched videos from the Odyssey and listened to the scientists explain the creature's offer. One by one, they agreed to the plan. "It's a new beginning," He-jun said, watching the ancient beings start to relax as the ocean floor grew calmer. "Humans and Earth's first guardians working together at last. The largest creature's final message of the day was simple but powerful. Minji smiled as she translated it. Our knowledge is your knowledge now. Together, we will protect our home. As the sun set, the ancient beings began to teach humans how to build their special machines. The sleeping being below grew quieter, soothed by the combined efforts of both species. The crisis had brought two intelligent races together, and now they would make sure it never happened again. 1 year had passed since the day humans first made contact with Earth's ancient guardians. The Odyssey sailed across calm waters, but this time it was different. Captain Hae-jun Kim stood on the bridge, watching several of the giant creatures swimming peacefully alongside his ship. Dr. Jae-yun Park came to join him, carrying her newest research papers. The new mining stations are working perfectly, she said. The creature's technology has changed everything. We're getting more resources than ever before, and the ocean floor has never been more stable. The largest creature, which the crew now called Elder, swam close to the ship. Its skin glowed with friendly patterns that everyone on board could now understand. After a year of working together, humans had learned much of the creature's language. Elder says they're ready to show us their city, Min Ji-yoom announced from her communication station. She had spent the past year creating a complete dictionary of the creature's light and wave patterns. They'd never invited humans there before. The deep diver had been upgraded with the creature's technology. It could now go deeper and stay underwater longer than any vessel humans had built before. Taiwan Lee checked all the systems as he prepared for their historic dive. Admiral Park's reports show the same success all over the world. Sun Li Kang said, looking up from her instruments. The creatures are helping us understand ocean currents and weather patterns we never knew existed. They can even predict earthquakes weeks before they happen. Hae-jun gathered his crew for the dive. This time, they had a special guest on board. Do-yeon Choi, who had studied the ancient archive a year ago, was now leading a team of scientists learning about Earth's early history from the creatures. As the deep diver descended into the dark water, the ancient beings surrounded them like an honor guard. Their glowing bodies lit the way to their hidden city. When it came into view, everyone on board gasped in amazement. The city was more beautiful than anything they had imagined. Huge buildings made of crystal-like material rose from the ocean floor. Gardens of glowing plants grew everywhere, and schools of bioluminescent fish swam through the streets like birds in the sky. Look at their technology, Jae-yun said in wonder. They'd found a way to live in perfect balance with nature. Everything they build works with the ocean, not against it. Elder led them to a large building in the center of the city. Inside, the creatures showed them something extraordinary, their plans for the future. The walls displayed moving images of new technologies that could help solve Earth's biggest problems. They're offering to teach us how to clean the oceans. Min-ji translated Elder's patterns. They know ways to remove pollution and plastic that we never thought of. And they have ideas about stopping climate change too. But that's not all, Do-yeon added, studying the ancient marks on the walls. They're preparing us for something bigger. The archives show that Earth has faced threats from space before. The creatures helped protect our planet then, and they want to make sure we're ready if it happens again. As they watched, Elder created a beautiful pattern of lights that spread across the entire city. Min-ji's eyes widened as she translated the message. They're saying that Earth's future belongs to both our species now, she said. We each have different strengths. The creatures understand the deep ocean and Earth's natural forces. Humans are good at building things and solving problems in new ways. Together, we can do amazing things. The deep diver's crew looked out at the magnificent underwater city. This was just the beginning of humanity's greatest adventure, learning from Earth's first children how to be better guardians of their shared home.